All right. Hello. Welcome everyone back to another happy hour show. Hope y'all are doing great out there. We have a very nice panel on this evening. We always have a great panel, but this one they're all unique in their own ways, right? So this week, welcome back Dave Levine, who's right down there. He's been on the show once or twice in the past, and looking forward to this conversation we're going to have with him. We also have Buck Phiat, CFA, as well as Dylan from the PH ecosystem, and another PH was added to that ecosystem, I guess, within the past week or so. So lots to talk about, including a lot of current events, banks failing, and who knows what else we'll get into. Also want to add that Buck is the most humble man in crypto, but Richard Hart is now giving him a run for his money. So, let me tell you how humble he is, or he'll tell you how humble he is. No, I'm just kidding. Good to have you all back. My PSA, because Dollar Cost Crypto and I talked about this a couple of streams ago, so I'm trying to mention it more and more. If you want to spread, the gospel of crypto, doing a great job on TikTok. We're all over Twitter. Check out Instagram. Make an account. Reels are where it's at right now with all the views. If TikTok gets rugged by the government by the end of the year, a lot of more eyeballs are going to go to Instagram. So there you go. Your content, I guess, non-financial advice for the evening. Who we got in chat? We have Red Squirrel, Hexfire, Dan Smith, all of our regular peoples. Freddie Quotes, are you at the beach, my friend? Hex Glenn, DJ Cryptomatic, thank you for the raid. They just raided over on Twitch. They were doing, I guess, some hip hop session today, eh? Hex Logic, Metallic Elmo, and the list goes on. We'll get to more of your comments and, of course, questions. So if you have questions for either Dave, Buck, Dylan, please post them. We're going to cover a variety of topics, so I try to monitor them as we go, and I'll save them and bring them up when it's appropriate, when we have a good break to ask some questions. What's up, Jonathan? Yeah, Freddie's at the beach. Mudhog. We'll talk a little RH there, JB. Why'd he close Instagram? I think it's the second phase of his marketing program. But let's start off, I guess, with the biggest news. And I think Buck, I guess I'll start with you. Do you have a take? And I'm guessing, since you're kind of across the globe in a sense, you wake up at different times and learn of these events in the States at different times. But any take? First, we had Silvergate and the troubles there, and that thing crashed, and now we're on the Silicon Valley Bank, SVB, where it just seems like, to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong or maybe have a different take, but it just seems like if they would have either kept their mouth shut, or the VCs would have kept their mouth shut and not telling other people to move their money out, I'm not sure that this would have happened. And it ended up being, I think, if my math's correct, like the second biggest bank collapse in U.S. history. So now we have one party saying, oh, it could be a contagion in 2008 all over again. I don't think that's the case. I think, the big money center banks are fine. And this was, they just over levered in their own way. But you got a take on this, and could it spread, or do you think it's just kind of contained and could be a one-off ish, even though I'm a little skeptical of that?
Yeah, so with SVB, we don't know all the details obviously yet, but it does appear to be a combination of them having a lot of exposure to interest rate risk, and that kind of makes sense given they're serving these largely commercial clients in Silicon Valley. It's been a very difficult year for their clients. They're going to have some bad debts. You're going to have rising interest rates impacting their book. And then just a general crisis of confidence, which you alluded to, which is a risk for every bank every day that when it opens, right? Which is why, the government put in FDIC was actually to sort of prevent that sort of thing from happening regularly. It used to happen all the time, right? But yeah, it's not going to matter in the grand scheme of the economy. It could potentially, we find out that it causes some more dominoes to tumble in Silicon Valley with tech stuff. It could impact, some of the other guys. Like I heard Circle had some money sitting on that bank, things like that. And we
the
just don't know.
USDC FUD began after that.
Yeah, exactly. So, those things, because there's no real. Oh yeah, by the way, this is my son. If you hear him squeaking, he's asleep on my chest. It's not me squeaking. But yeah, it's not necessarily the start of something huge. I really doubt. It is a little bit. It's a good reminder. We've probably been really overly excited the past few months in markets. Inflation is probably going to still remain, relatively persistent. Kind of above those long-term levels where we would like it to be, around 2 to 3% going forward. All that money is still sloshing around that we've thrown at the global economy post the kind of COVID lockdown period, and no one really knows, when that inflation bug is going to be licked exactly, right? Not even the Fed, right? And they need to kind of prove that they're serious. And what did we have last night with non-farm payroll? So you had a pretty good non-farm payroll print, so higher than expected, which gives the Fed more room to keep hiking. On the other side, you had unemployment, U3 unemployment tick up to 3.6, which was higher than expected. Average hourly earnings were a little bit lower than expected. So those both kind of point to the Fed's policies are starting to work and the economy is starting to cool down. But overall, you still have a pretty strong economy. That's still creating jobs. So yeah, I think it's actually gone a lot better than probably most people expected. A few months ago, you could have expected to be in a proper recession by now, but the economy's chosen to be quite resilient. But we've basically had a period of just too much optimism. There's no real reason for us to be putting a new all-time highs yet in crypto or in markets, right? There's the impetus for that just isn't here yet. So I think that's we found the top of that range, and now we're kind of going to bounce back down a little bit and wait for more information.
That we shall. So you brought up the Fed there. Dave, where do you think, I guess, we're at with this? I guess we'll start with the Fed first, because I'm sure you have some thoughts on that, and I've seen your Twitter account. Go ahead.
I mean, the Silvergate, which was the first domino here, is a regulated bank. It's not crypto.
Har.
It's FTX is not crypto, and Celsius is not crypto. All of my crypto price is going down, which was pretty foreseeable in 2021 if you've been through 8 bubbles like me. But as far as things working, real crypto is working fine, right? Even your hex craziness, right? It's still working, or whatever. So, but the regulated banking system, by definition, it's fractional. They don't have enough collateral, and even if they have enough collateral, it's not liquid immediately. So now Silvergate, the government is, at war with crypto here. And so Elizabeth Warren especially, and they're looking into that, she was targeting them thinking like it's a crypto company or something, or it's crypto. It's not. And whether it's her fault or not, but there was even a central bank, a regulator saying something about, well, regulated banks are fine. It's like, well, Silvergate's regulated. And these things, it always creates a contagion because they don't have enough collateral, and it's all based on trust. And, your point where you said, well, if they just didn't say anything? I mean, the whole idea is that no one knows what's going on and everyone just trusts it blindly. And I guess if we could all trust it all a little bit more and more blindly, maybe everything would be fine. But every once in a while, people are worried about the money in the banks that they don't really own. And so, but when this happens to one bank, people lose money and that collateral disappears, which makes collateral at other places disappear, because then they need to get that money, and it always spills over to who's next until the central bank comes in and bails people out. Now, it's possible they're having meetings, and on Monday, JP Morgan now owns all those customers, and don't worry about it. It's fine.
Somebody will by Monday, I think.
Maybe, you know, and it's possible they put that fire out. They've learned the longer you wait to put out the fire, the bigger it is. And you know, whatever, we don't know. So, you know, we'll see what happens. So
do you think this makes the Fed pay more attention now that like something kind of broke that was related to, you know, the rapid rate increases, or do you think they're just tunnel vision, you know, employment?
It's always the same. They raise rates until something, you know, everyone says until something breaks. It's not until something breaks. It's until something breaks that they care about. They don't care about crypto.
Right.
They don't care about tech. They don't care about Hex, right? But they have things they care about. And if this is spilling over, or they see it spilling over, they'll print as much money as they want. What my thesis has, I've been saying for a year, you know, the crypto, all the leverage in crypto is gone. The next shoe to drop is in fiat. And if it's not this, and this doesn't spill over, there'll be another thing. And I am you know, there will be.
What part of fiat?
Well, you know, it's just the way it's set up. And when you pull out all of this money, and with interest rates going up and so many people are losing money, collateral's disappearing, it's all fractional reserve, something blows up and there's nothing they can do except go out of business, which makes more blow up. Eventually, the central bank has to come in and print. And my feeling has just been, you know, in 2009, they rescued everything with 1 trillion. They brought it from 1 trillion to 2. Then in like 2013, 14, they took the 2 and they doubled that and they printed another 2 to bring it to 4. Then in 2020, to bail everything out, they doubled the 4. They printed another 4 to double it to 8. My assumption is the next bailout, they're going to have to print 8 trillion total, and then we can enjoy another 5 years and crypto moons. So that's what I'm assuming happens at some point. But, you know, these patterns continue until they don't. So, you know, but a credit event happening, I don't see how you can avoid that. And then the Fed pivots, whether it's exactly 8 trillion's worth and which thing blows up and how quickly they address it is unknown. And it's also quite possible that you have inflation heating up and printing doesn't solve the problem. It's actually interpreted as causing more of a problem, and the whole Ponzi comes down, and you better hope you own some ETH or Bitcoin. Or if you believe in Hex, God bless.
Hey, Hex has done great for myself, and I think everyone else on screen, plus everyone in chat. So
it's all good. And monkey JPEGs continue to hold their value. I mean, it's unbelievable. So it's all better than that fiat crap.
I mean, that's debatable, I guess.
The monkey JPEG.
I thought they're down the same as everything else, a little bit more than ETH. I mean, I thought that the NFTs would go down. Obviously, it goes down with ETH, but I thought it would fall another 80%. Hasn't happened. So, and even what's Elon's coin there, Dogecoin. I mean, I'm like, okay, once it gets below 5 cents, it hasn't even gone below 5 cents. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's still a lot of money sloshing around out there. Bitcoin, I guess, is now back above 20K. So that's kind of just like the magic number. It seems like there's a magnet, you know, 5K below, 5K above. We've been kind of just trading around this 20K figure. So it's like once we break out of that range, I would think eventually it's going to be to the upside. Then, you know, we can carry on our merry way. But I guess yeah, I'll throw it to you, I guess, first, Dave, while Baby Buck is still asleep or hopefully quiet. Where do you think we're at in, say, legacy and crypto markets? Do you think that they bottom at different times? Do you think crypto bottoms first? I think Richard Hart has mentioned crypto bottoms first, or he would think crypto bottoms first. Are we even close? Because I know I've seen, your videos, you've put it out there, and for months you've been, I call it, your Dave CA strategy. You've been, just slowly scaling in as things have come down, and you're like, don't do it all at once, which is, what I'm all about here. And then I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said maybe a few months back, mid-year this year could be the time where you stop putting money to work. That was just a guess at that time, but you still see that as your target, or has that changed at all?
Yeah, so I mean, I view especially crypto, and the rest of the world seems to be following crypto, not only in timing, but in just this crazy pattern of the boom, the bust, and then I call the boring low. And each boring low, if you're not in a shit coin, is significantly higher than the previous boring low, right? So, and the boring low is the time to accumulate. When it's crazy boom time, like in 2021, it's time to de-risk. It's not just selling and get out of it all. It's just when it becomes that 80% of your net worth is some tiny coin that now is worth a ton of money, it makes sense to own some stable coins, and everything went up a lot. Then once you crash your 80%, it makes, like, I don't know if I had 40% of my net worth in stable coins in 2021, and then it crashes. Now it's like 70% of my net worth. Do I want to be a person who holds stable coins long term? And now stable coins are becoming risky, right? So if you're just managing risk. So, to me, you had the boom, obviously 21, the crash, and then the boring low started June of 2022. And that's when you start accumulating a little bit every month. And for me, being done just means, well, I'm out of stable coins. I'm done. And the whole question, everybody wants to know what day and what dollar is the absolute low, right? I did not buy ETH at $82 in 2019. But my average cost is, whatever, $250. It's fine. Bitcoin, 2015, I started buying. I didn't buy it. I remember the day it went to 175, and I should buy more, but I was like, this is crazy. You know what? But my average cost of like $350, it was okay. That's how I view it. And selling ETH in 2021, we had 7 months to sell ETH over 3,000. Did I sell it all at 4,800? No. But I'm happy with my 3,000 and change average cost selling. So that's the way I view it. And now I didn't buy any, dollar cost average buying. I took January and February off. And I think last July I took off because you have these big bounces. But, I think we're still in the boring low. We're coming back down. Hopefully, whatever, maybe we already had the ultimate low. Maybe there'll be a better low. Maybe I'll have some stable coins left and buy the one moment, my new prediction. And I know how to get a lot of views on YouTube, but I never do it. But the way to get a lot of views is you have a video that says, ETH's going to hit $667 on March 32nd,
And then you got to have your face like,
yeah.
Yeah.
So
people love that shit, especially buying. I got blocked by Plan B when I yelled at him when Bitcoin hit 60,000, and he said, "We're just getting started, newbies. Come on!" And I said, "That's irresponsible," because he knows what he's doing, and it's just he blocked me for my reasoning. So so that's it's. I'm accumulating, and I got I have a month or two more to buy, and it looks like we're on good schedule here for March to get back on schedule, and I might be done. And if the world collapses in June and I have nothing left to buy, I think I have a good average cost. That ultimate high and that ultimate low, people talk about in 2017 when Bitcoin hit 20,000. Actually, it hit $19,500, and you had 3 weeks to buy it or to sell it over 17,000. Like, that's not real. Nobody that's not where nobody's doing that. It's the 6 and 7 months you have to sell at a really high price or to get in at a really low price long term and get your 10x and be happy. Don't be greedy. I like
now, a lot of times these highs and lows, especially lows, I think it was the COVID low, like you have like less than an hour to get in on it. Like these are wicks that, just kind of like one time, one day events. Yeah, you can buy, way lower than what you were, but getting the low, the absolute low is like you got to luck out with, either pressing the button at the exact right time or limit orders or whatever.
And when you're there, it doesn't feel that way. When you're at the high, you're sure it's going higher. When you're at that low, you're sure it's going lower. To think that you're mentally going to go all in or all out at that moment. The guy, I like to say, the guys who draw lines on charts and thinks that's doing anything other than giving them headaches, they never sell high and never sell low. And if they do sell some high and they're all excited and then they get back in double before it crashes, or in the other way. It's, yeah.
Well, speaking of lines on charts, Buck, I guess I'll ask you this one. So we had a low, I think it was like 3,500 back in October. You think, I'm talking S&P 500. You think we get back down there? Do we test that, or do we just kind of go a little bit lower and then kind of just trend sideways and like we're eventually out of this in a few months? Or as obviously you don't have a crystal ball, but opinions are always welcome. I'm sure you have some thoughts on it, but or we just kind of just grind this out until either something breaks, because I can't see the Fed pivoting. I don't know where that chatter ever started from. They've said higher for longer, and if that's the case, it just seems like a grind for possibly months more.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, you look at how you value equities, right? You look at the future cash flows of the companies and the market's expectation of them, and then you divide them by the interest rate, and that's basically the Fed fund target is what you pretty much use for that, or the path of future interest rates. So if you think interest rates are going to go up more than is already priced in or expected, you should expect things like equity to drop a lot more. Things like tech stocks are especially sensitive to increasing interest rates because inherently their future earnings and cash flows are not so much in the present, but could be 10 years, 20 years down the line, depending on the type of company. So those very growthy type of stocks, I think, are pretty sensitive to it. I'm kind of the view that equities definitely could put into a new bottom here. I don't think crypto is likely to, however, and that's simply because we've already had our major kind of Lehman-esque event in crypto that really cleaned out most of the dog shit that Dave was talking about earlier, which is the kind of non-bank participants, specifically Celsius, BlockFi, everything that went from Terra Luna all the way up to FTX, and I know you can argue that what you're seeing now with Silvergate and whatnot is a continuation of that to some degree, but I think we've already kind of figured out who's basically insolvent, and the remaining people I think are okay. Most likely, we'll see what the government does. The only thing that worries me really is if they try to use Sam to go after Binance and Tether and these sort of offshore players, because I think that could get us new lows in crypto. But aside from a black swan like a global pandemic or a meteoroid or something like that, I don't really see us getting ETH below 900. It's just it'll be pretty hard to do. But yeah, if Tether breaks or Binance gets raided and CZ
right,
jacked to Guantanamo or something like that, like I think that could sufficiently scare crypto markets. But I mean, really, it's going to take something like that to get to. He's been very, very resilient.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's one of my biggest positions in crypto. But I also like to think about things not just in terms of crypto. I like to think about your opportunity sets elsewhere. Like I still think real estate's expensive, hasn't dropped that much.
Yep.
And I feel like there's a lot of excesses there, and I wonder, that Silicon Bank thing, if part of that, Ron, is connected to that as well. You just look at kind of massively overpriced California real estate. All these tech companies. All this stuff is sensitive to interest rates, and maybe some of that needs to play through. I'm sure there's a lot of things that could still break, and the Fed for now is like, if I'm looking at those numbers, if I'm Jay Powell, I'm going, well, finally some progress, but not even that much progress. Like 3.6 U3 unemployment is incredibly low. You know what I mean? That's basically what we always thought full employment would be, right? It's stupidly low. And, I hear that even most Hexicans now have full-time jobs, which shows you how easy it is to get a job still in America, right? Like most of you are unemployable, in my opinion. So I definitely wouldn't hire most of you guys. But the fact that most of you actually have jobs now tells me that it's a pretty tight labor market still. I don't think the calamity, the massive crash is coming, because I don't see the big excesses still. The excesses were obviously in crypto. We knew that at the time. Everybody knew that was a bubble. You didn't know when it was going to break, but you knew it was a bubble. The tech wreck that we've just experienced, that was a little bit more slower moving. A lot of people were in denial about that. They didn't want to believe that inflation was going to kill, tech, right? So maybe there's some excess still to play there. And then, real estate. Most Americans have hopefully termed out their mortgages for 30 years at 3% or 2%. So maybe they're not doing so bad. But just keep in mind, there's somebody else on the other side of that debt, and that's who should be hurting right now.
And also, the bond bubble has popped, and when I say bond bubble, I mean the 40-year bond bull run. It's clearly, like I said, I don't like to look on charts, and certainly not short term, but anything over 3 years, you can look for a second, but a 40-year chart over, and there's certain things where, when a bubble pops, it's pretty clear, and when it does, and it's obviously just, the whole thing is like stupid, right? And now that momentum is clearly shifted. Rising interest rates. Now, granted, it's a slow move, or at least it was a slow moving train for 40 years in one direction. I don't know if it'll be 40 years in the other, or how it goes, and you can have rallies and stuff, but that's a huge change in dynamic in the pricing of money and the pricing of everything. And that puts a lot of pressure on a lot of just excesses that were everywhere, including in the government. And who knows? I think the volatility, we used to say, when crypto gets big enough, it's going to stop being so volatile and become more like the rest of the world. I'm starting to think, actually, as crypto gets bigger, it looks like the rest of the world is going to become volatile like crypto.
It feels that way right now, right?
Yeah, everybody's crypto now. I mean, it's just, everything is, I think, seatbelts required. So
Buck perked up the employment in the chat. So I see a 43 OG. I also saw your comment there, 43, earlier. What about World War III? Well, if there's World War III, then nobody's going to care about the assets, because it's not going to be worth anything. So who cares at that point? That's how I always answer that question. But anyway, Buck brought up Ethereum, and kind of the funny title I put on this happy hour is Ethereum Whale Tales, because I know, Dave, you're big on Ethereum, and you've kind of pivoted, I'd say, over the years. I mean, you used to be, a lot heavier into Bitcoin, and you've kind of pivoted that into being, I guess, 50% or more.
Well, specifically,
Ethereum.
I made a video on January 15th, 2020, which this was lucky that was like the day for the Bitcoin Ethereum price low. And where I said, I always I do my portfolio recommendations. I always recommended 70% of your portfolio in Bitcoin. And I changed it to 70% ETH like that day. And since then it's outperformed Bitcoin by 300%. And that,
Now, why'd you do that? Because I know in the chat here, and like Buck said, I know he's big into Ethereum. Why did you do that? What could you see
what I
on the
saw,
horizon, and what do you see now, like going forward? Because consensus, even the Hexagon community, is Bitcoin is slow. The developments happening on Ethereum, that's why it's doing awesome and holding up.
Ethereum always had the development, the applications, the smart contracts, but Bitcoin is digital gold. What I realized then, and which is now true and launched, everyone still may not agree, but Ethereum's proof of stake, I think, makes Ethereum better digital gold than Bitcoin. Lower issuance rate. I think it's more secure. And I also think it's more decentralized. I understand, and I don't say that. People think, oh, how can you possibly say that? Like, I thought a lot about this. Decentralization that's why I created an affiliate program in 1995, because I wanted to decentralize marketing. I love decentralization. I care about it. I'm obsessed with it. And I think Ethereum is decentralized, so I think that it is. And I think on every metric, Ethereum beats Bitcoin, except for market cap. But the flippening will fix that.
We have one of the few Bitcoin OG peeps, my man DJ Cryptomatic. How could he possibly say that? I'm guessing about Bitcoin. So Hex Squid and ETH is now deflationary. So
ETH has a lower issuance rate than Bitcoin. This proof of stake is whatever. I mean, listen, it's a long fight. I can't give you a soundbite, but I do believe it's. I mean, I have a playlist, Ethereum versus Bitcoin, on my YouTube, where I do a bunch of videos talking about it being more decentralized. But it's that digital gold thesis that makes it unstoppable, and it's the biggest. I mean, compared to any other crypto platform, it's definitely it's significantly bigger than whoever's number two. And the only other competition is Bitcoin for digital gold, and I think it wins there.
Yeah, I'll throw it over to Buck. Your thoughts on ETH, because as you mentioned, I would think I'm safe in calling you a long-term ETH bull. Your thesis on that, real quick.
I'm maybe not as optimistic as Dave, but it's funny. He and I kind of come to the same conclusions, but we get there in different ways. I was just thinking about what he said about decentralization, because I obviously have heard the narrative that it's made it more centralized. So that's interesting. But I really like Ethereum because I see it as the current winner in basically. You can think of it as an operating system, iOS. The way that you have Apple iOS, right? It's the best thing currently we have in crypto, and it's won this cycle, right? We didn't know if that was going to happen. There was a lot of other L1s that came along, Solana, Dot, right? All these other things. And I think Ethereum is the clear winner, despite, everybody's attempts to try to make a better Ethereum. Having said that, I still think Ethereum's terrible in that it's not that good. It's hard to use. It's not super intuitive. The software that you use to interact with it, like MetaMask, is awful, right? So it feels a bit like using the internet in the mid 90s still. It's easy enough that like somebody reasonably smart and young can use it, right? But it's not so easy that a baby boomer or a quiet generation person can use it, right? And it needs to come a long way, right? And somebody who's really into crypto, who's motivated, can use Ethereum. But I've yet to be able to get my siblings to put together their hardware wallets and actually go out and use DeFi properly. Like, they're just not interested, and it's too fucking hard and too boring for them. You know what I mean? Whereas even my mother uses an iPhone now, and an iPad, and she hates computers. She's in her late 70s. She's a early baby boomer, but the software got so easy and useful that she's actually even embraced it after being a confirmed Luddite for years. So I think crypto still needs to do that. And I guess that's my caution to Dave and the rest of you about Ethereum is, well, it definitely won this cycle, clearly. The opportunity for it to get leapfrogged is still there, right? I think.
Well, I agree with what you're saying. This is the state of things today, but I'm not worried about that. And I think that's a less difficult challenge than some of the previous challenges in the proof of stake and everything. The scaling solutions are here, and we have these optimistic rollups, but these ZK rollups, which were always thought, well, those are even better, but those will be many years away, and just all of a sudden, like, they're here already. And and there are so many things with this account abstraction and the ZK technology. And I'm not that much of a tech guy, but I've listened to enough things to see that it will be there. And the thing I was also surprised about, I was just at ETH Denver, even privacy is coming. I was like, okay, privacy, yeah, it's coming, and we'll see that hopefully in 10 years. Like, ton of things launching next year on these EK rollups. You're gonna now, I've also learned there's a difference even between, it's going to launch and then it takes a little while, and then it launches and they don't let everybody on. And
if you're a Bitcoin guy, like I kind of was as well, and I became an Ethereum guy. I got used to everybody telling me that the Lightning Network was going to be here like in 6 months' time and change everything.
Right.
And
even I remember with Optimism, it was like, it's going to launch. It was delayed. Then it launched, but we're not going to let anybody on it because now we're building on it. Oh, okay. And then like a year later, well, now it's open, but like, what are you doing? It's like 2 years after it launched, you're getting on. So, but the ZK rollups are moving faster than expected constantly. So I'm slightly more optimistic, and I think we'll get there. So
I call that the kind of technology step change that you want to look for that makes things, just really much better. If you look at Ethereum from the lens of 2017, when most of us, kind of really started to use it for the first time, especially Bitcoin guys, Ethereum looked really useless in 2017. It was literally just people creating bullshit tokens and claiming they were going to go do something, right? It wasn't until you actually saw things like Uniswap really manifest themselves, in 2020, 2019, Aave, all these things where I really understood the power of the smart contract. And when you saw that, you go, okay, this is a big deal. So I don't see the technological step change happening yet, but maybe that's what you think is coming, is the ZK Sync one or these other things that you mentioned. That excites me. I can't wait to see that next big thing, because I think that's what you need. Two things to happen. You need a looser monetary policy expected going forward, and you need to see those sort of step changes come in that are going to really improve crypto and get people using it again and speculating on it again. So that's the recipe I'm looking for to get really long crypto.
Motley investor wrapped BTC on Ethereum turned out to be the best scaling solution. How ironic. LOL. Good to see you, Motley.
I think wrapped Bitcoin is multiples higher than it ever was on Lightning Network, and I think still is to this day.
I believe you're correct.
I mean, which, all the things you can do on Ethereum, which, all the DeFi products and stuff like that you can't do on Lightning besides, buy a coffee or whatever at a Bitcoin convention. I think it really speaks volumes in general.
I actually think that's bullish for Bitcoin, to me personally, because in a way it's like, Ethereum's just the vessel that you carry your Bitcoin in, right? If someone makes a better vessel, you can go do that somewhere else. So I think it's possible, that Bitcoin actually still has a future. I still think that original thesis is reasonable, that, it's this decentralized money that people are going to, not be able to overly impact and things like that. The government can't stop it. The government seems to have accepted it. That's one thing that I think is interesting too in this dynamic is it seems like, at least in this cycle now, the government has decided they're okay with Bitcoin. They're not threatened by it. They're very threatened and worried about what's happening in DeFi and on these exchanges, which is interesting.
Yeah, and you've seen all the Bitcoin maxis turn on actual DeFi and point the finger from
that's gross.
Their perch. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
I was optimistic on Bitcoin as well when it was coming on Ethereum, and there was a lot of applications, not just the WBTC, but and I thought, well, this is really cool, and now you get that collateral. And the reality is, although there's a fair amount of it, and MakerDAO's using it, but it didn't take off like I thought it would. You don't see high interest rates on it. It's not a preferred collateral on Ethereum, and I found it to be a little underwhelming. And then what was the other point you just made? I was going to say something on that too. I don't know. You had the next thing you said.
I said something about the government basically seems to not be threatened by Bitcoin anymore.
Well, I think
it seems to be accepted.
The government's position, and I like to always mention this when people are like, oh, they say we don't want to ban crypto. What they want to do is they want to ban that you have self-custody. You can have all the crypto you want as long as I got a back door and I can steal some when I need to. That's what they want. They want control. Right. And they can, because Bitcoin, one of my reasons why it's not as decentralized is what can you do with it without centralized actors everywhere? And
Precisely.
So they can gain control of it, I think. I mean, I'm not saying it'd be easy. And you can still get off chain and send it to individuals peer to peer. But that's their thing when they're like, oh, we're not going to ban it. It's that, they don't want you to have your own wallet. That's the end game, is self-custody.
Yeah, you're going to have to use one of their exchanges, and one of the exchanges they have oversight of through Bitcoin is why it's not threatening. But ironically, that also points to why it might actually be a good investment too, because if that's what the government let's say G10 governments coalesces behind and goes, yeah, okay, we're going to have this and we're going to allow it, that actually could be bullish. It's not what I want for crypto as a kind of free thinking libertarian type person, but it might actually make it potentially a good investment. Because I do see the fragility. If the governments are all going to coalesce around Bitcoin and say, yeah, Bitcoin's okay, come use Coinbase, and we'll take our cut.
Still, I think if they were that smart, they'd just make their own crypto that's programmable. But I don't believe in the whole central bank digital currency for America, because I think if they had a plan to build a bus lane in Washington, D.C., they couldn't do it in 10 years for $1 billion. I mean, they just can't do. They're a bunch of morons. So I don't think that's.
You think it's going to be USDC?
I think they eventually would capture USDC. Bear hug USDC is probably what they do. I don't think that's their plan, because again, I don't think these people know how to plan. But I think at some point they're going to be like, oh shoot, I guess we should have played this differently. What are we going to do now? Oh, hello, Circle Boys. Come over to my office.
Absolutely. I'll make another prediction about government policy as well on this point. Is right now you have aging baby boomers running government. But they're going to be out in the next 5-10 years, and you're going to be left with millennials and Zoomers, so people that look like Dylan running the country, and people his age.
Scarier than Biden? I don't know.
You should be scared. Gen Xers should be scared of this, because people like Dylan don't have a pot to piss in, and they don't own a house, and they don't own anything except for crypto. And
I'm sitting in my own house, jackass.
I'm speaking about your generation.
Yes,
but,
people like. There you go.
You're sitting in your own house in your mom's basement. Now, those people are going to, obviously be pretty pro crypto. So I think in democratic countries, you're going to see policy really shift. As those younger people get more vocal in legislation. But for now, they're not really represented. So I think that's going to be a big change. And all those McMansions and all those assets that baby boomers own right now, they're going to need to start disposing of them.
Another positive thought I had when I was in East Denver, and this is sort of speculation, but still, a lot of people I talked to, I feel like everybody I talked to was like, "What are you doing?" It's like, "Oh, I'm in Morocco working with the government, and we're, and they have a bridge there, and then we can get into Africa, and it has something to do with having dollars on your phone." What are you doing? Well, I'm over in this Asian country, and I'm working with the government, and we're going to do savings account with dollars on your phone. I'm in Latin America. And we're seeing positive regulation in a lot of non-US countries. And a lot of it is just like dollar savings accounts. I kept hearing dollar savings accounts. I'm always like, well, what is that? I think it's, and as Caitlin Long says, if you follow her, one of the innovations of crypto is that anybody who has collateral can now print dollars on their phone. So I think the US might be pressured if the next boom starts outside of the US, everything's going up. All these governments are working. The US might be like, oh, shoot. I guess this fight is not working, and they're forced to pivot. So it's a hope.
Yeah. So we brought up Bitcoin, ETH, some USDC in there. We talked a lot about it last week on the show, so I don't want to beat it to death, but because it is an issue and will be, I think more of an issue this year because it's an active one and Gensler's out there. Just a little bit on regulation. I mean, pretty much we've seen them target, centralized exchanges, go after Kraken for staking. And, I've said this before. My favorite quote from Gensler is "not your keys, not your crypto," or something to that effect. He acknowledges that part. So what is next, I guess, what's the next target? Where can you see the regulation front going? I guess I'll throw it over to you, Buck. Are we kind of just in the middle of this? Are they going to do like a scorched earth, or, it's just pick and choose kind of thing to see what works, what doesn't? And who takes them to court, who doesn't, who stands up to them, who doesn't.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think with the government guys, you want to keep in mind that most of them are eyeing the next step, right? So maybe Gary wants to be a politician, in his next move, or he may want to go work for Coinbase as their VP of corporate relations, right? There's a lot of regulatory capture.
Rags to Riches has brought up the politics route, by the way.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, these are kind of usually what they're up to. So a lot of these guys are pretty hip, and they all universally like making lots of money. So I don't think scorched earth is very likely. It's not a very hip position. And the more you look into crypto, the more you realize it's actually kind of cool as well. So even guys like Gary Gensler are going to understand that. What I think is likely to happen is something that more or less mirrors traditional finance, which is when you go to your E-Trade or your interactive broker account, your Fidelity account or whatever, they basically, they put you in a kiddie pool and let you buy stocks at first, right? And then you have to fill out a whole bunch of paperwork and tick a bunch of boxes to say, I'm sufficiently rich and sophisticated enough to trade options or derivatives and other things like that. Something like that has to happen in crypto on those CEXs, right? And I imagine they're going to need to come up with a framework that works like that, so that your mom isn't being duped into investing in something that could just get felted. She's not, and also so that they're not advertising unsecured loans as bank interest, right? Which is what Celsius and BlockFi and all these other guys were doing, right? So they need to come up with all those sort of frameworks for the centralized world, and a lot of that'll be picked up by not just startups, but larger entities that have big balance sheets that are going to do a proper job of it. So, and that's what the government's going to want to do. They're going to want to bring people back on shore, as opposed to pushing them into the Caribbean, the Bahamas, and things like that. And then, they're basically going to come up with some sort of license to say, okay, now I'm rich. I'm a sophisticated investor. Let me into DeFi. Let me control my own wallet.
The whole accredited stigma.
Yeah. It's got to be something like that. And I'm not sure exactly what that looks like, because ultimately you can't stop people from going into DeFi, like if they're determined enough. But I think that's what's going to happen, most likely. And I think that's where we'll actually find a happy medium. They're going to go after things that are clearly bad actors. I look at Tornado Cash as an example of that. I like Tornado Cash. I like privacy. I like all that stuff. But when your purpose is explicitly to help people potentially hide money, and you have no KYC and none of these things, that's going to be the kind of thing that ultimately draws their ire. But they also can't stop things like this from coming. So there'll be a perpetual arms race, and they'll give up on that, just like they gave up on the Pirate Bay and other BitTorrent things, right? They just made it sufficiently easy enough for people to stay in the kind of normal world, and that on average they do. And for everybody else, we'll still be able to go do things on blockchain. So I think that's probably okay, because most people just don't have the energy to actually manage their crypto themselves. I know we say not your keys, not your crypto, but I mean, like, to be honest, we're a very select brand of people that are willing to actually take full ownership of your finances. And I would argue that there's many of you are not qualified or capable of actually doing that correctly either, right? You're probably better off letting someone else manage it for you, to be honest, right? There's examples in the community of people that have lost tons of money just doing really dumb things. So the average American is going to probably need those.
Or they were just unaware,
Yeah.
I mean, just,
sure.
Not oblivious.
Yeah. It happens, right? I'm never going to encourage my mom to use Uniswap. The likelihood of her fucking up and losing money is so high, right? I don't want her doing that, but if Fidelity had like a proper crypto custody for her, and she could invest in indexes and things like that way, I would absolutely tell her, get a 50 basis point position in your retirement portfolio that way, right? And I think that's what's going to come for most people, and that's fine, because that actually they still ultimately have to go buy crypto. They have to go through Anchorage. Those underlying professionals are going to go buy crypto for my mom, and that's bullish. So yeah, I am gatekeeping moms. I'm all about gatekeeping moms.
A couple thoughts on that. First of all, as far as the ease of use, I do think that self-custody will become easier through things. There's like so many people working on these things with social recovery, where you'll have a system with a group of friends or away, and there will be software that sort of makes this easier. And there'll also be sort of custodial situations that, it's not really 100% you, and I think there will be ways, right now too. I like to tell people, it's not that easy, but that's why you're getting paid. Like, you're not going to have 10x gains when it's just simple and everyone clicks a button and they're on it. Like, that's one of the things. The other thing is, I do not believe that the government's, I think of all the list of things they care about, them protecting people against scams is nowhere. I don't think that's on the top of the list, if not on the bottom. First of all, so many of these Wall Street products are just, to me, super scammy. We see the only Bitcoin thing they approved, not an ETF or whatever that thing is, where it's just a way for Wall Street banks to charge a bunch of fees and will guaranteed to underperform the actual price of Bitcoin. All of these, so many scams in crypto land whether it's the clear ones like BitConnect. Every ad on YouTube in 2017 was BitConnect. It was obviously a scam. Nobody did anything about it. Yeah, 3 years later, I guess they pressed some charges. And even things like what was the EOS thing, which was ridiculous. And years later, they fined him a couple pennies. And even in the regulated banking, where there's plenty of scams, there's problems and there's money laundering, and the bank makes $100 million on it, and they get fined 20 million. I'm not buying it for a second. I think what they care about is that they can skim, and if there's a problem, a meltdown, they can steal. You talk about, E-Trade's easy. You can go in for your stocks. I just tweeted this because I finally looked up all the details. When the stocks in your brokerage, you don't own them. They're owed to you by your brokerage, but they don't own the title of the shares. It's owed to them by a clearing firm. The clearing firm doesn't own the shares. The title of the shares is legally owned by the Depository Trust Corporation, who may have loaned it to other people. That's what they care about. There's the only reason they can fund Weekend at Bernie's with Biden and have Pelosi doing her shenanigans. And I don't want to only point out liberals, whatever name.
Keep doing it. Keep doing it.
I call it the red team, blue team reality show. The only way to fund that stupidness is that they can steal. That's what they care about. And that's what they want to set up. Even this KYC AML, they're not stopping criminals with that. There's no evidence that they have. And look at the cost that they employ here for all of that stuff. Now, I agree, crypto's not ready for prime time and the masses. And your mom, my mom, probably even worse. We're not ready yet, but that's where it should go. And I don't think they have these good intentions. Maybe they used to, and maybe some people want it, but not seeing it.
Got it. We are coming up. We're right at the top of the hour. So we still have PH ecosystem we're going to get to here shortly. New coin was just added, I guess, within the past week or so. We're going to talk a little Hex and Pulse Chain before we go to. I did want to do a segment we have not done in probably weeks now. So we're going to bring this back, and let's have a little fun for a minute before we get into the good stuff. So I ask Dave Levine.
I think for long
the fuck is this?
Relationships,
this video? That's not what I sent you, is it?
Heart is much more important than the size of his penis.
Mm-hmm.
So
for men,
the next,
that's one category.
Okay.
The other thing is male pleasure, which would be kind of masturbators. A new thing we're selling a lot of now are these really large, realistic masturbators. Like it's a whole torso. You've got like the leg and the vagina and the butt and breasts.
So it's like a sex doll.
Yeah, actually, the new category is there's no head or arms or legs. Okay?
An amputated sex doll.
Yeah.
Dave, you're so kinky.
So, Dave.
Oh, Lord, yes.
What was that?
I for 20 years, I was founder and CEO of sextoy.com. Created one of the first affiliate programs for, it was for adult products. And it was fun. In hindsight, I have many different opinions now. The women I used to party with, now when I see girls like that, I say, what are you doing with your life? Go home.
That's right.
Do your homework. Instead of, hey, want to come to my house at 2 a.m?
No, it's funny. We've crossed paths before in that realm. For the PH team, actually, we were going to play a prank at the one of the conventions for the Hex conference, and we were asking you for a recommendation for branded dildos. And
okay, that's funny.
You sent me a connect, and I got in touch and everything, and the deal fell through. But we have crossed paths before for we were gonna send dildos to the golf event that were branded
for the swag bag, you know, that because they wanted, you know, water bottles and things like that. So I thought it'd be funny to just send them all a bunch of plastic penises.
Yeah, I went to Dave for that.
You went to Dave. You went straight to the source. Evidently,
That's right.
Yeah. You know, I was the guy. You know, if you needed the guy, people knew to call me. I still get called. And I'm like, I sold the business, and you know, I stopped. You know, working there in 2016, people call me. I'm like, I don't know anymore. I haven't done this for 10 years, but I still have people I can hook you up. Listen, it's a tough business. I'm happy to send them leads. You know?
Hex 19, they've got great pills for that nowadays. So Richard Hart, you must have been like his arch enemy. He must have been going, Dave Levine. Oh man.
No, because I talked to him. I went on his show twice, actually, and we talked about it. And I remember it being that he was a marketer. So I was although I own the domain sextoy.com, I didn't push it because I really like the whole affiliate program, which is
you're a wholesaler,
decentralizing my marketing. So it's about other people building brands. So I was helping marketers, and he was a marketer. So I don't know that he worked with me, but he would have been the type of person that would use my program, and I would fulfill and send him a high commission rate, and we all got along. So when I talked to him, we did feel like it was also, we were both done with all that when I talked to him. So it was a little bit of a like, oh yes, we had a similar early childhood.
Those halcyon sex toy days. Yes.
Yeah, those were the days.
Yep.
I had fun.
Dave, you mentioned another video that you sent me. Did you want me to play that one? Because this is sight unseen, so I could play it.
Oh, I don't know. What did you send me? You said something funny, and I just had that because I literally someone emailed.
Now, did you take the video?
And I saw that. I hadn't seen that video for the longest time.
I think we have to see it.
Are you in the video?
No, I'm not even in it.
No.
It's the I was filming. It was just a Saturday afternoon at Sex Toy Dave's.
All right, Saturday afternoon at Sex Toy Dave's. Let's check it out. Sounds like a movie.
I got the text message from Dave Levine. I haven't heard from him in like 4 months. And it's like, pool party, Saturday afternoon. It's 100 fucking degrees. So you got to show up. At least just show up for a second, see what the fuck's going on. I come here, there's like 20 of the hottest girls you ever saw in LA. Just hanging out, like no guys. Like 20 odd girls, no guys. Just like, they're like, come here, like.
Sarina.
And it just becomes ends up like Girls Gone Wild.
Oh, that was
very good.
You might be in the wrong business.
Look out.
Anyways, I mean, it goes on. I don't know.
So that seemed like a pretty good ratio you had back in the day.
I was all about the ratio.
Yeah.
You gotta watch the ratio.
Hexy bastard, my kind of party. Yeah, I bet, buddy. All right, let's move on to some Pulse Chain ecosystem coins. We are talking to Buck Phiat, CFA. I don't know what you would like to be called, Lord of the PH ecosystem, God founder of it, but
definitely not.
But
that's fine.
Yeah, I know Dylan could probably drive here, but for those who are already familiar, so you have Fiat.io, which is going to be or is a fork of Aave with eFiat coming up soon, but you can fill us in on details of that. Famous, which is fork of GMX, and recently you announced Phux. So tell us about Phux, Dave, or excuse me, Buck.
Yeah, right. So I won't. I think most of the people here probably already know us pretty well. So I'll give Dave the kind of really quick view. Basically, we are taking all of the best things that exist on Ethereum and other L1s in the DeFi space that I think are not addressed currently by the Pulse Chain community, and basically building them for Pulse Chain. And we're also launching a few things on Ethereum as well. So as Cabana said, we're bringing a fork of GMX, a fork of Aave, a fork of Balancer. Now, Balancer is our new product, PHUX. I call it PHUX, but some people might want to call it Phux. That's part of the charm. Basically, we are going to be a full-fledged, horizontally integrated investment bank like Goldman Sachs, but on DeFi, if you will, on Pulse Chain. So that's basically the crux of what we're doing. We've got a pretty good following of people. Some people are pretty happy with us, with what we're doing, and we're going to be launching Fiat on Ethereum in this month, and God willing. And this is going to be the first time ever you're going to be able to leverage or short Hex anywhere. So guys like Dave that might hate Hex or think it's going to zero. Oh, you don't hate Hex? Okay, too bad. Well, pretend for a second you did, and then you could go in and short it by borrowing it and selling it for Ethereum, something you do like, which might actually be a winning trade depending on where we are in the cycle. So that we're going to be the first guys ever to basically facilitate this anywhere in the world. So we're pretty excited about that.
Outstanding. I know Dave, Aave is one of the coins that I think is in your portfolio last I saw, but I mean, feel free. I'm going to bring up any questions in the chat as well, but if you have any questions for Buck and the whole ecosystem, or if he wants to
I'll give you my
more
point of view, because my Hex opinion is often misunderstood. I even saw a quote comment, will Dave admit that he was wrong? What I've always said about Hex from day one. I was on Richard's show because I wanted to understand what this thing was, and he was giving away the free Hex. Then I had Bitcoin, and why not? So I was I was in this thing and talking about it from the beginning. What I always said was, Richard is very entertaining. I enjoy watching and listening to him. Smart guy. And this whole thing, I wish everybody luck. Like, I hope it goes to the moon. It did perform very well in the last bubble. Or the last whatever cycle. Great. I'm happy for everyone. But for me, I am DeFi. To me, Hex I view it as a game. Now, I understand it's not totally a game, but because the collateral of Hex, and I understand it also, he calls it like a money market, it's earning interest or whatever, but it's not, because it's not. If I saw it being used as collateral within all the DeFi applications on Ethereum or some platform, that would be one thing. Or if the interest it was paying was in dollars based on some adding value, that would be another thing. I view it as a game. If you disagree with that, fine. Okay. And I don't invest in gaming. And that doesn't mean that gaming on crypto won't be billions of dollars. I just like DeFi better because I like it. And also I think DeFi is going to be trillions and gaming is billions. And still billions is enough money for most people. And there's other areas in crypto with like social networks and I don't invest there because it's not my thing. So me not being in Hex is not because and if Hex turns out to be the greatest performing asset of all time, I will be fine. You know what? I never bought Amazon either. And I love Amazon and I use it all the time. I just didn't get the stock when it was time to get it. It wasn't for me, So, hey, you can't.
Well, under $100 right now might be a good time to get it, looking back in 5 years. So,
yeah, you know what? You can't be in every winter, and I'm okay with that. Now, my concern with the other thing I do with investing is I like to get into things. I'm not good with these, there's these private tokens and pre-launch and all this stuff. I like to see something launch and watch the adoption, watch its use, and see that it's getting that traction. And then I would get it. Now, obviously, Hex in that first cycle did that. for that. But now this whole thing moving to Pulse, to me, that's just okay, great. I hope Pulse chain turns out to be honest, the number 2 chain, because I still would like ETH to win. But I hope it's great and successful and everyone makes a ton of money. But to me, it's just another L1, and I would want to see it through this cycle, before it to me seems a tall order, even if the tech is good and it all launches flawlessly and everything that, fuck Fiat is building. Buck Phiat is building. All is perfect. Will all the users come over to that? Maybe. And I have no way to predict that sort of thing. I would want to see it, and somehow it's even better than Ethereum. Okay, but I'm not going to predict that because my brain is not that big. My brain, though, is good at looking at statistics and charts and seeing the number of users on the chart. And Ethereum is here, and then the Pulse chain ones are here. Okay, that I can figure out. That one's bigger. And then I would consider allocating and getting onto that chain because I want to be where the action is. And so I'm just wait and see. And if I miss it, and I don't need to be the first, just like I don't have to sell the absolute top and buy the absolute bottom. I don't have to be the absolute first, but I'm early. I'm earlier than most people in Ethereum. It's good enough. When I got on the web in 95, I was like, oh shit, I'm late because it was invented in 94. It's fine.
I think Pulse Chain bulls would be quite happy for Pulse Chain to be second to Ethereum because it's designed to lighten the load of Ethereum, and Ethereum is number 1 and Pulse Chain is number 2. That would be absolutely outstanding, and many would take that for a gigantic victory.
If Pulse Chain's number 2, I'm going to find one of Dave's headless sex toys and have sex with it on YouTube in front of all of you guys. I'll be so rich I won't care. So I want to say I like a lot of what Dave's saying there. If you bought Ethereum in the first dip after it launched, you did pretty well, right? In 2016 or whatever, or 2015, whenever it had its first dip. So yeah, you don't have to rush in. I agree with you completely. And I think there's a lot of people who might have sacrificed for Pulse Chain that probably wish they'd waited. So yeah, I don't disagree with what you said there. I do think I also agree with you to an extent what you called the Hex being a game with the interest not really being interest. That's true. It's an inflation thing, and it has the impact of basically locking people in mentally and causing them to basically come and do what Cabana's doing and what all these other people are doing, which is that it gets them sort of personally invested in building the community around it. And that's maybe what you want to look at, Dave, is that you're not wrong about the interest side, but look at the community that's being built around it. It's average, what I call Applebee's eating Americans. Right, people that are
that's also there's a thing I don't understand, including Applebee's and including I see like with a lot of this NFT stuff, I'm like there's something there's a culture, and I don't like when I saw Richard twerking and I don't know what in some tracksuit.
I had to
run to the bathroom. Well. I mean, it was a good experiment. And there were people who loved this.
You were that aroused.
Now I want to buy more.
He was that aroused.
I can't wrap my head around. I can understand, locking a token up in Gelato that provides liquidity on Uniswap, and that gives me another token, and I lock it to Frax, and I'm being paid with 2 token interest on that. I can understand that before I can understand, Richard twerking.
So I'm in your camp. I'm like you in this regard. However, I don't dispel that the amount of people that want to go to fine French restaurants, Michelin star restaurants and eat foie gras, it appears to be far less than the people that want to go to Applebee's and Olive Garden and get unlimited breadsticks, right?
I would just like to say, since I found Hex, I now go to the Red Lobster.
Yeah, exactly.
What a step up there.
So if you want to think about where the money is going to be, it's like what is interesting about this community, Dave, is that these people are not snobs, Phiat snobs like me. It's that they're average Americans, and they go and they ferociously bring their friends in, and they're going to build the Red Lobster L1, and that actually has tremendous potential because it means they can go and explain, no, you guys really need to try this out, right? Whereas how many nerds that use Frax or Dot or these other things are the kind of people that are even very social and that are going to go explain to people, here's why you should go use Dot. It's too fucking hard. I don't know what it is, right? But Hex keeps it real simple because these are real simple people, and there's lots of them, and they actually have money. A lot of them were early into crypto. A lot of them are Bitcoiners that are basically now incentivized long term to make this thing work because we've got these stakes that go out 10, 15 years. So we have to go basically try to make this thing into something useful. So on top of that, everybody laughs at this community. We're the laughing stock of crypto, and in many ways. So a lot of people misunderstand that's actually part of what's interesting about it. You can still probably get in at a pretty low level when Pulse Chain launches, right? Because of that. Anytime there's something good and new coming, it's usually a terrible investment, because it's some VC guy who's perfectly timing their exit, right? That's usually what happens when, like let's say Twitter shares finally start to trade or, whatever, right? We're in the opposite position. So I think it's an interesting investment thesis. And you don't have to love what the community is doing or the twerking to put an allocation to it. And I think there will be more money on Ethereum, but we will have bigger returns because basically we're attached to Ethereum and we're just coming from a lower, valuation in general. Right. So that's what I'm predicting will happen. So if you like ETH, and I like ETH, you're going to want to wait till Pulse Chain launches. Pick your bottom. It'll probably come sometime, a few months after launch, and you can ride that cycle up, and you can end up with a lot more ETH at the end of it. I think that's my
these
opinion,
things.
Dave.
I think it is. There's a lot of it with its community, that people go for. I remember trying to explain this to someone in finance who thinks everything is stupid, and I was explaining. Is also I found this with Dogecoin because I originally was like, well, that's stupid, and then every time I'd meet somebody and I'd say, oh, Dogecoin, that's stupid. He's like, oh, really? Well, my brother put in $300 and now it's worth $2,000 and he's just a nice guy. And I'm like, oh, sorry. And then I'd meet somebody else. I was like, oh, well, my mother bought $200 and and then I'd be talking to some, whatever. I'm on a date, and I'm, yeah, well, Dogecoin. Oh, well, that's the only token that I own. Oh, no, it's great. It's great. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should be a Dogecoiner. I want to be friends with all these people. And I don't know if I want to be friends with all the Hex people. Like you said, it could be scary. But,
yeah.
But there is something about that. Like, I think that's one of the attractions. I don't know what's going on. I can't wrap my head around it. Maybe if Richard talking for 8 hours gets everybody into a trance, But
well, he hasn't even been doing that recently.
Oh, really?
To our chagrin, no. He's basically like stopped streaming all.
Well, I heard there was some SEC and the SEC. Yeah. The concern I had is like you want a target on your back. That's the kind of guy they love to hate,
Yeah.
And I went on a show with him, and during the show, it's like Hex went up like 1,000. The thing went straight up. No, I'm not thinking it's because of me on the show, but it just was. And then Richard starts going, he actually tweeted it. Oh, this show was great. With Dave on, the thing went up a ton. And I was like, no, I have nothing, and I think he even got mad at me because I was like denouncing, because I was like, I don't want to be accused of pumping. I do believe I said from the beginning when it launched, it's not a scam. I do think it's a real smart contract. I mean, I don't know anything about what's going on in Pulse, but the original Hex thing, it was all that. But he does own, I'm sure, and I don't know the exact numbers, a lot of tokens. It was a lot to his benefit. And even if every single thing was perfectly legit, that's the type of guy the SEC would love to make an example of. So that scares me. And I wonder if they scared him and now he's like keeping quiet a little bit.
Yeah, no, we don't disagree on any of that. But I would say that concentrated ownership will draw ire. You're right. But it's also what's kind of cool about Hex, actually, once you start to understand it. You need to dig deeper into that, Dave, but maybe you don't have the time. But it is actually a lot cooler when you don't worry about the code. That's not what's cool about it, Dave. But the other thing I was going to say is if PulseChain's not going to be any better than Ethereum. It's going to be just a copy of Ethereum. And we're not even going to have most of the stuff that Ethereum has. But what we will have is the potential for massive upsize returns that I don't think Ethereum has at this stage. It's just hard when you're worth a couple $100 billion in valuation to turn that into 100x, right? That's just the reality. It's the law of large numbers. So yeah, I think if you want to end up with more ETH, looking at PulseChain is a great way to maybe make that happen. Because there will be this huge potential. One thing I will say about this community that I like to make fun of regularly is, they do, unlike most other cryptos, almost everybody knows how to use a smart wallet here. Everybody knows how to go use a Ledger or a Trezor or whatever. It's a native DeFi community of average Americans, and that's very unique. Maybe the Doge guys are like this, but I don't think they are, right? They're all using CEXs, right?
Yeah.
So it is pretty interesting. So you get average Applebee's, middle-class Americans that generally have kind of old school, rural American values. And you pair that with they tend to be very salesy people, right? A lot of ex kind of cult scammy type people that like promoting things. Okay, you've got that element of the community, and on top of that, they all know how to go use Uniswap and DeFi. It's like basically something you have to do in order to join the club, and they all know how to get their friends to do it. Yeah, Bob Lagai.
And I remember actually, it is you keep making fun of the simple folk, but I remember when Richard, was starting the thing, and it was like you get the free Bitcoin. It's like, oh, it's easy. You go here. I'm like, I don't get it. What? And everybody in the chat was like yelling at me that I'm so stupid. I can't get it. I'm like, I'm not that stupid, but I don't. And then when I finally, I had to get somebody on the phone with me to help figure out how to get the Hex. I couldn't figure it out. And so, these are
what part could you not figure out?
Smart for their own good or something if they're that simple. You know what I mean? I don't know, because it is a bit of a weirdly brain black yet insane crowd or something.
Were you having trouble using Uniswap, or was this really early?
No, it wasn't even the Uniswap.
There's probably free claim.
I was just like, what are the rules of the game? I view it as what are the rules exactly? It's it's easy. You can do this, and if you log it up, but if you did it, and if you did it, and I'd be like, what? Do you have this written down? It's like, yeah, it's written down. If you go to this and you go to this, and I'm like, it was like, dude, it's so simple. I'm like, I don't know. I don't think so. And then to claim your free Hex.
That
was a little difficult. Yeah.
That was
Bitcoin free.
That was still the most technical thing I've ever done in crypto.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think I got $6 or something hilariously. Worth of Hex for it.
And every time you had purchased a Bitcoin, it was like a separate. It was like.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was tough.
Yeah, the UTXO set and all that bullshit. Yep. I couldn't even claim all of mine because I was in a Samurai wallet. I could only claim 90% of my Bitcoin because I couldn't figure out the rest. So
yeah.
Okay.
So you missed.
People thought this was easy.
But the way to make money off of Hex was actually to buy it after it dropped 98% the next 30 days. That was how you made money off of Hex. We were all dicking around in the beginning with that stuff.
In a million years, if you to predict anything was going to go up that much, that was not
Well, I actually knew it was, and you can go look in the Telegram chats at hex.pub, and you can look me up, because I saw that this was going to happen. I didn't think it was going to go up this much, but I predicted that it would.
Or I thought it would go up until, when was that? The free things. It was like exactly a
the big
year.
payday.
Yeah, then that'll be the.
I had the same kind of conclusion as well about that as well, and it did drop precipitously when
it was like 85% at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then I kept seeing people are bragging about locking it up for 15 years. I'm like, okay, maybe there's like 2 idiots doing that,
but Dave, you talk about like, I don't really get these people. They're weird. It's like, you know what else I don't get? Like religion. I don't get that either. Yeah. But geez, a lot of people seem to like it. There's
the opiate of the masses.
There's a billion, people that like to read the Quran every day. There's another billion people that like to read the Bible. These people are really into it, and those are ecosystems that last for thousands of years, right? So I think that's what I'm saying when I do see a bit of potential.
And I also thought that when the price finally, when the top finally happens, which it did, and the one thing I will criticize the Hex community, like I make a video talking about, regulations or talking about Aave, and then the first comment is buy Hex. Fucking Hex,
Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, great. And I used to say, I can't, and this is when it was at 30 cents. I said, I can't wait. Or whatever, it was much higher. I said, I can't wait till it gets below 5 cents, and then all you Hex guys will shut up. Below 5 cents, and nobody shut up, and everyone's excited. And look at all the people in this chat here. Like,
there's the opportunity, Dave.
I'm killing you guys. I can't get rid of you.
Putting down.
But just commenting off topic, I hate that.
You remember Jones?
The XRP army left and went to Hex.
You remember Jonestown? The guys that drank the Kool-Aid. It's like Jonestown, but you multiply it by like 100 people, 100x in terms of the people, but they're just as crazy as the Jonestown people were. But here, we're all about making money.
And you're not dying.
We're drinking Kool-Aid, but we haven't drunk the poison.
But it's like
it's not the poison Kool-Aid.
Bottom of it. Bottom of the cup.
And we're bringing out. We're better than the Mormons that go in door to door and bringing in our friends. I'm not. Like I in the real world, nobody knows I own Hex, and I don't talk about it ever with anybody. I'd be absolutely mortified if anybody knew.
Hold on, Buck is the black sheep of the office.
But yeah, I mean, it really is actually, I think, a very unique crypto ecosystem for that reason. And it doesn't even have to be that good. And I'll point to another example of this. If you remember Apple 20 years ago, sucked. It was worse than Windows. Didn't have any of the good applications. Didn't have any video games. Still doesn't have any video games if you're into that, right? But Windows was dominant in the 90s, right? And Apple had this fanatical group of people that were really behind it. And, when it started to kind of come up with a few good products and start to put some good numbers together, it became the darling of the tech world from being an absolute joke. Right. So I'm not saying Steve Jobs was never as fat as Richard. But I do think there's a potential here for us to go from being the laughing stock of crypto to actually something reasonably well respected, and the price appreciation you get from that is enormous. You're looking at having the ability to buy a lot more Ethereum than you have currently if you do that. So I really think this thing's a sleeper in that regard.
Hex or Pulse chain?
They're all connected. It doesn't matter, in my opinion. And I ultimately think the value goes to Hex because for other reasons, which I won't go into. But the whole ecosystem is likely to grow at a much faster rate than Ethereum can. That's pretty obvious. And we've got average people like Dylan that can go talk to their buddies. No one else has that in the same way. The Doge guys, you're right, are very active, but it's a meme, and that's all they got. The Shiba guys have a good meme, and they're trying to build their own community. So they're probably the next kind of thing as well in that regard. Hello, Gary. But I think we're really unique and special in this capacity. I think the fact that people don't see it yet is what makes the investment thesis the most compelling.
I just wanted to welcome Funding Jim, Gary over there. How you doing? Been a minute.
I had to come in here to spar with Buck. What? Talking about our founder, our illustrious, outrage marketing guru. What? You talking about the laughing stock? What am I listening to? I think he's trolling you, Dave, because there's some double speak going on when the religious aren't on camera. Religious.
Are you streaming from a boiler room?
No, it just happens to be nighttime where I'm at, and
okay.
A little bit more dank, I guess.
Well, yeah, welcome, Funding Jim. We're kind of close to wrapping things up here. Yep, recognized in chat. Gary coming in hot. That's right. It was a good day. I guess we'll go through some questions and anything, obviously, Gary or Buck, Dave, Dylan, you wanted to bring up for this. I know, Dylan, if you wanted to bring up any screens or if that's already been done enough that you feel. Franklin, yeah, Cabana, I peeped the thumbnail, but crop me in next time. LOL. Yeah, I give props to Dylan and team for that.
That was a Fiat intern. That was
Fiat intern. So there you go.
Also, I did hear one thing. Let me make a comment before we move on too far.
Sure.
The free claim thing that was so difficult and challenging about having Bitcoin. I think it was 1,500 or 15,500. Maybe it was 14,400. Can't remember. But that was in today's price.
14.
Yeah, 14.4. Is that what it was?
I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me do the calculation again, just to double check. 14,400 times. I think it's around. Let's just say 5 cents. That's $720. So $720 if you had Bitcoin back then. And during the run up, since people that did claim with their Bitcoin and they didn't put money into the system as far as any finance, it was just a free claim, they were automatically locked. So they were automatically staked for 351 days. And I think when some of that started coming out, I did the calculation before, it was something like a fifth of a Bitcoin at the Bitcoin's price back then. So yeah, it's an interesting hurdle to learn how to do some of these things in the crypto space. It's a challenge for me. Often I talk with people like Jason Hartman, Kiyosaki, George Gammon, all these different people that talk about how difficult crypto is because they don't have a central party to just handle their account for them and a phone number to call, to say, let me just throw some money at this thing that's speculative and have
Hex help desk,
have autopilot from MetaMask help it out, whatever. Right. So that's the price of learning anything and becoming knowledgeable about a space. I used to run startup accelerators, which are just basically fancy hostels in the Bay Area. And, people come in with wild ideas. They kind of dress like a clown, but often that's where the innovation comes from, is that person that looks outside the box. So again, kudos I've seen Dave's streaming in the past, and he's been on this channel or other channels in the past as well, talking with Richard and such. So I know the guy that way. And then the same thing with Cabana, he's been a stalwart for, 3 years now. Like the guy the same way. Buck is still, he changes avatars every so often, and gender and race and whatever else. So he's anonymous, but I listen to the vocabulary and the way that he speaks for well over a year as far as public commentary. And I find him very valuable as well about the macro markets and legacy markets and how they operate. So glad for the stream to be available.
Thank you, Gary. And Dave, Gary is probably more sophisticated. I'm here.
You're good. You cut out for a second, I thought, but
yeah.
You're good.
Oh, okay. I was going to say Gary's more sophisticated than the Applesby hexagon. He is probably the best one we've got in this regard. But what I mean, this man goes around the world hobnobbing with entrepreneurs all over the place. And, he has a great background in real estate, and he talks to them about hex as well, and it's just like, this guy's doing this for nobody's paying him to do it. He's doing it all the time. And Cabana's doing it as well, so I really think a lot of people really underestimate the power of that community. Our tech can be silly. The code can be a game, like you say. We don't even need to be better than Ethereum. We just need to have better returns and really motivated people going out and getting more people to use our stuff. And ironically, like I said, at the end of the day, what you may see is Ethereum's still too hard to use, but we've onboarded maybe hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people around the world, and they all know how to use our DeFi protocol. So if you like DeFi, you may actually like what you see on Pulse Chain in the future. I'm trying to build things that you can't even have on Ethereum right now, like GMX, because Ethereum fees are too high. It makes liquidations probably too hard, and it probably won't work properly. You know what I mean?
So isn't GMX it's on Arbitrum, which is a
exactly.
layer 2. Layer 2s are Ethereum. That's the future of Ethereum, is all the layer 2s. So.
Yeah, I agree with you. And look, I'm a massive Ethereum bull like you are too, but just don't underestimate what can happen when you take all that stuff and you get a bunch of people like Gary and Cabana running around, and then you get me and my uber geeky Chinese Harvard programmers building everything that rebuilding everything in a horizontally integrated fashion that exists on Ethereum and other L1s for Pulse Chain, and we're going to have that very quickly, very, very soon in terms of Pulse's life, right? People aren't going to have to wait 2-3 years to have stable coins or Aave. They're going to have it from us and other people like me very quickly. And yeah, I mean, there's other things that you don't even know about that I won't even go into. But this thing is not something that you want to miss out on. Pick your moment. Let things drop in price. But get a little bit of exposure is my advice.
Listen, guys, I have to run in a minute, but I'll just in closing, I will say, first of all, as always, I wish the Hexicans luck. And I'm, maybe in the next cycle, I will have gotten religion. I don't need, somebody posted, there was a comment said, my investment thesis seems to be show up late to the party and then see if it was a cool party. A better analogy of what I do is, to me, it's like a horse race, except there's no finish. And I do believe that most of the money accrues to whichever horse is in the lead. So what I like to do is wait till the horses are running, and I see who's in the lead, and I put my money on that horse, and I watch. And if another one is gaining, I'm not going to wait till they even get past, but I'll see the speed differential, right? It's gaining, and I can tell in X amount of time it's probably going to pass if the paces continue. And then I switch it up, and I just like to have my money in the winners. So now, as far as whatever category Gex is in, it's probably the winner of that. My issue might be I'm not sure I'm able to define that category. But listen, but now you're going on to a new platform, so it's a whole new thing that I need to worry about, and I'll wait for another cycle, and everybody can call me stupid. But you know what? I made a lot of money in the last cycle. I'm okay, guys. Don't worry too much about me, right? I got 7 months to sell ETH. Accumulated a lot of ETH at 250 and had 7 months to sell it over 3,000 and buying back. So far it looks like we're going to have at least 7 months to buy back in under 1,500. I'm getting by. Don't lose sleep over my wealth, and my sex toy business is okay for 20 years as well. I mean, I'm okay.
I don't think we're losing sleep. We just love to have you here because you're a smart crypto guy.
I know some people don't just say, "Oh, you're so stupid. You're missing out." But if nothing else, I watch from a distance with joy, and that's about it. But I gotta run.
Good,
I haven't stopped making videos every day. I'm not used to being on shows. I'd be on for 3 hours and it was like nothing. Now I'm like, I got a lot going on. I'm working on writing though. Someday I may have something available.
Yeah, I think you teased that in your last video. So before you go, where can people find you on YouTube or Twitter?
I'm always DaveLevine.com. On Twitter, it's Dave Levine and then the number 0.com. And on YouTube, it's Dave Levine and then DOTCOM.com spelled. And I own the domain, so that should point to wherever I am. And that's, I'm pretty active on Twitter, and I was making a lot of videos. I'm working on writing. I'm trying to write my thought, basically my portfolio recommendations for the next cycle, what to hold through the next cycle. Yeah,
Hex, Pulse Chain.
I'm not getting into the Hex, but listen, maybe you'll be interested.
Famous.
In what crap I have to say.
I can't wait to read the Pool Party memoirs. I
have some things I'd love to. Oh boy, I've got. It's not just the story; it's what I've learned. I know what's behind curtain number 3, and
I think you'd probably be canceled for these things nowadays.
Well, actually, and surprisingly, I became sort of conservative through the whole process. So
interesting.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story.
Interestingly, before you go, you're in, but you don't know that you're in. And you're in because of the fork element of everything that is on Pulse on Ethereum. If you're Ethereum bull, if you hold just the L1, you're not going to have much volume on Pulse chain, but you'll have Pulse as well, PLS, which is the gas, same as Ethereum.
You're saying I can claim it at any point or something?
No, it's just you're just changing your MetaMask setting to look at a different network, but you're at the fork. Everything that you have, if you have a
Chainlink.
If you have a NFT that's Ethereum based, if you have a smart contract that you like, platform and things like that, all that code is there on fork. So we are forking the entire system.
That reminds me of this thing where there's some sort of, can be a security thread, and then they use that you could, I would be scared to go there until for a while, like that. I'm sure there's no way that then someone can come
So there's no difference. Again, if you're saying that there's
if
two,
you send a transaction and then someone can use that to duplicate transaction.
No, we can get
replay attack is where
the concept is, if you're in the Bay Area, which I was in the Bay Area for a long time, but if you're in I think you're Los Angeles maybe, you may be familiar that there are 2 paths to go to San Francisco from the South Bay if you've gone up north, 280 and the 101. And so 101 has a lot of traffic that you love, which is Ethereum, has all that off ramps and on ramps and all the participants and all the cars and so forth. You'll have the same duplication as far as the 280, which is less traffic and more scenic, right? Less volume at the launch of Pulse Chain, but you have a car there. So all the vehicles that you're already using on Ethereum, all the NFT or derivatives of Ethereum code, all that code, those vehicles are also there. And in the future, like you said, second cycle, third cycle, maybe we'll have built a lot of value for your cars. And then you'll say, hey, it's great that I have a car over here that was in my own keys. You had no real bridging. There's nothing you had to move across a path, but you just have that same code duplicated in the fork.
Yeah, it's not an empty chain. It's full system state. So
yeah. And that relay attack that you were talking about, like something that was a concern for like ETH Fair or the ETH POW or something like that. They had a really low hash rate, and that's why that was an issue. But with Pulse Chain, you'll start up with pretty robust validators and stuff like that. So you could still wait just to be safe to protect your own ass, but you'll be fine.
So the main thing is, Dave, you're going to use Pulse Chain if only to sell your stuff for more Ethereum is the reality, right? But what then is going to happen is you're going to go, oh, actually, this stuff is doing okay. Maybe I should punt on this with some of my Ethereum. I think that's what Gary's kind of pointing at. That's going to happen, and every ETH guy is going to at some point, come over and try it out. I don't know. We'll see. I think it's going to be the faster moving horse, to use your analogy. And it may never, it probably never gets there. It probably never takes the lead, in my opinion. But you can make so much money while it's, you don't have to win the race. Like you said, the race doesn't end. You can make so much money watching this horse move way faster than the other horses for the next cycle, that you won't even care. as long as you have a little bit of discipline about your investment.
Cool. All right, guys.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate you
thanks for
stopping by.
having me.
Good to see you.
Good seeing you guys. Good luck.
We'll see you on your YouTube channel.
Take it easy, Dave.
It's not the hard sell, but he doesn't know he's already sold. He'll just check in later. That's what I gathered from that.
He'll have coins in the wallet, and you're like, "Hey, what can I do with these things?" Question for you, Gary. While we have you here, and I have a few saved up before we leave for this Friday. Question for Gary: why is it so hard to onboard people now when they can maximize profits? I've tried everything.
People very biased, but
I was going to say I've lived this. People will only listen to you when prices already gone up, so it's tough. I know what he's saying.
Yep.
Yeah, and then when he's saying onboard, I don't know if he's saying specifically Hex or about the concept of Pulse Chain and these other things, but let me just say, investor mindset. 20% of the people do like a majority of the labor and work and innovation and creation. So these are Pareto examples. You could
he's talking Hex.
Yeah, so if he's talking Hex, you could. For me, real estate people are just easier, and people that don't have a lot of relationship baggage in their past are easier when it comes to cryptocurrency. That's my forte and my interest. Conversation is more disciplined, it seems like, and more congenial because they're often in deal making. They're in deal making because they're trying to secure property for a good price. They're in deal making because they're trying to secure tenants that are reliable and don't damage their property. They're in a 3 to 5 year window as far as flip of property they've acquired and set up as entities to sell again into the marketplace if they do that. So I tend to only focus on real estate minded or people that have exited a business in the past, meaning they successfully sold their business. It can be a dry cleaner. It could be a tech startup, but if they have successfully walked the journey of investing more than gambling, they are easier for onboarding significant money. So I would just change who I'm talking to more than my message.
I'd like to jump in on that question actually, because so that's the retail investor mindset. The retail investor treats investment like a fad, like a fashion fad. They go and they buy whatever is being talked about in the news this week as being up, right? And that's a really terrible way to invest. But you see it in the real world. People go and buy the stock that's pumping the most this week, and they get annihilated. Proper investors will look for things. They'll look at the whole universe of investments, and they'll look for things that are high quality, that are currently cheap, relative to other things, right? So unfortunately, with those kind of retail-minded people, you can't really persuade them that much. That's just their nature, and until they learn that, to really look for value and look for good opportunities when they're cheap, it's next to impossible. So I think you're better off actually just going to people that understand this fundamentally. And the good thing is, most of the people with lots of money, the really big end of town, they understand this and do it quite well. So you would never, ever, ever go into an investment pitch in the real world talking to professional investors and go, "Hey, you should buy my crypto because it did a 10,000x." Like that's just the dumbest thing you could say to professional investors, because they'll be like, "Well, it did a 10,000x, so that means it could probably do a 1 over 10,000x." So yeah, no, thank you. That sounds expensive to me, right? What you want to do is you want to go, well, this thing is this, it's currently, it's dropped a whole bunch. So it's currently trading, at the bottom of its range. And, there's a whole bunch of good news that's coming over the next year that people don't really know how to value yet. And explain that story to them. And, we've got this really strong community and all this other stuff. But yeah, most people, they're just, they do their investments the same way they buy a bathing suit. If tube tops are in fashion, they go buy tube tops. So yeah, my advice is to go find those people that are smart right now, and talk to them in that way. and you'll have success with that, with those kind of people. And for the people that want to, pretend that they're at Zara when they go do investments, or H&M or one of these other places, fast fashion, they're going to buy it at the top, and they do it again and again and again.
Well said.
There we have it. Let's see, a few more questions before we wrap up. And if you have any more while we have this panel, feel free to post. Question for Buck or Dylan. Will Pulse Doge, Poor Pleb, and or Pulse Trump coin be on fiat by chance?
I'm going to scoop up all the Trump NFTs on Pulse.
Probably not for a while.
Okay.
I won't say never, but it's they need to have reasonable liquidity and be hard to manipulate in price. So it's not really our choice. It's more if you like those coins, you need to make them kind of proper coins and get them to a certain liquidity and size and whatnot. We can't really add new things like that have all sorts of potential to be manipulated terribly.
Do you have a volume or a price point or something like that as a threshold?
Yeah, so we'd have to look at a whole bunch of things like how concentrated the ownership is, right? So for Hex, for example, we on the surface have to be comfortable with the fact that we don't think the OA is going to rug pull, right? If the OA decides to rug pull, okay, we're fucked, right? We all get that. So we're comfortable with that. Aave is probably not comfortable with that. However, I may not be comfortable with one of those other coins, Trump Inu, for example, that founder is not going to rug pull, right? So we have to kind of make certain choices on that side of things. So yeah, but in general, if you have something that could easily be up or down 30% in a single candle, that's probably not an ideal candidate for something like this.
There you go, Mango Junkie jokes. 2 more weeks for fiat, 2 more weeks. Maybe e-fiat though, right? Realm of possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to Dev One last night. We're ready to launch. As far as he's concerned, it's really just about doing other kind of related admin things. So there's no technical hurdle for him at this stage. So yeah, we're getting down to the very pointy end. Dev 2 is going to have balances for everything out this weekend. So we'll spend a week arguing about that. But yeah, we're looking to issue the tokens very soon. Once those balances are final. And then we'll launch shortly thereafter. So yeah, I think it's going to happen realistically 2-3 weeks. I'm pushing for it for sure.
Can you clarify, is this a smart contract that any front end can engage if someone launches a front end? And then if you have your own front ends, can I leave accept cookies turned off? I don't like to accept cookies.
You can definitely put your own front end there. In terms of the cookies question, yeah,
or Orca, except Orca. I can throw Orca under the bus. That's my point.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Now I get it. But yeah, you can run your own front end if you want. That's possible.
Question: will Famous launch on Ethereum?
It depends on Ethereum. If you might notice that nobody else is trying to run a GMX fork on Ethereum at the moment, right? So if Ethereum's throughput improves or something like that, you'll see things like that on Ethereum in the future. But currently they run on Arbitrum and AVAX for that reason. So it's not really up to us. If we had the ability to do it, we will do it. But it's really go talk to Vitalik and his guys and see how they're going with their progress.
And last but not least, talking Fed for everyone in the room. Next meeting, I take it. Blaster Master asks 25, 50, or 75. I know my answer, but what say you? I guess we'll go around the room. Buck first.
It doesn't matter, but I'll say 25.
Same.
Same.
Dylan? Same.
25.
Gary?
I'm not really good at that. Supposedly they broke something. Supposedly there's people that think, oh, because they broke something, they'll say 0. But like, I don't really care. It doesn't make a difference.
I mean, it bleeds over to crypto. I mean, if traditional markets break, then Bitcoin will take a hit. But I'm also in agreement with Buck earlier that I think crypto has actually bottomed. And
well, Gary's right. Anyway, it's like by the time the Fed meeting happens, it doesn't matter. They're already signaling to you in advance kind of the way they're thinking about it, and the market's pricing that in.
And if they're looking at employment, it's a lagging indicator. So it's like we're basing these decisions off of that.
They're looking at everything, but the thing that they have to look at as their mandate is price stability. So they need to try and basically make CPI somewhere in an acceptable range, something like 2 to 3% through time, while maximizing employment. So right now they've got very low unemployment. That's basically about as low as it can go at 3.6%. Right, that's a super low number. And then so they have no unemployment problem, right? Where they do have a problem is prices going up. So that's what they're doing. They're trying to slow the inflation down without destroying the economy at the same time and making everybody lose their job. So that's the balancing act. So they're looking at those backwards numbers that you talked about, but they're also trying to forecast them as well. They're looking at all the components of it, so shelter and services and the cost of your cereal and the cost of your petrol and all that stuff. And they're making a determination. They also need to, when they talk to you guys, though, they need to scare you enough so that you actually change your behavior. Because if you go, oh, I don't believe you, Fed, and I'm going to keep spending, that's no good, right? So they're kind of like your dad, when you're like a 16-year-old, and they have to kind of give you some tough love and say, you fucking kids, you better stop, hanging out, partying all night and get a goddamn job and work hard. If you don't, I'm going to end the party.
They want you to go to Walmart and buy the Great Value brand and take a step down. Yeah,
they want you to stop consuming. They want you guys to stop going to Applebee's, right? They want you guys to cut back on your Applebee's.
They want me to downgrade from Red Lobster back to Applebee's.
Yeah. They want you to start going to that. The cereal aisle. They want you to look at the bottom of the cereal aisle where the generic cereal is.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. The Great Value is the generic. Yeah. So.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah.
What they need to do is just take their fiat and bridge it. Lock it into a bridge that mints an ERC20 and airdrop it on 555 stakers. 5555 stakers. So if they airdrop it on them, then maybe they'll EES at the 7.5-year mark. But it still allows them to kick the can down the road without, harming the American economy. Like, that's the best solution.
That's a nice solution, yeah.
Gary for president.
Gary for press.
Gary for Fed chair and president. We'll make you Fed chair and president, and then Hex will win. That's
All right. Well, I think that'll about wrap us up. Tigray, saw your question. Any chance I'll get Jenkins on in the future? Yeah, I mean, we've done a stream like once a month-ish, and things have moved plenty in the charts that, yeah, I think that's a good idea that I'll have him back on. Usually it's better if I'm traveling, more optimal. That way I don't have all the bells and whistles with me, so he can just run through the charts and I let him do that. So within the next couple of weeks, actually, I'll hit up Jenkins and see if he's available. And I see a lot of complimentary tweets on him regarding him on Twitter too. He's had some great price calls. I think it was like sub 2 cents ish, and now he has been talking right around 5.5 cents. And if the next, I guess, support that he's identified is like high 4s, like 4.8, something like that, if memory serves. So he's had some great TA, and a lot of smart people have been giving him praise. So I'd love to have him back on the show, and I'll hit him up. But Till then, we're going to call it a week, and just want to say thanks to Dave Levine for coming by and spending plenty of time with us and going back and forth. And maybe one day he'll have Hex in his wallet, but he'll have a bunch of stuff in his Pulse Chain wallet, whether he likes it or not. So, but want to thank Buck and Funding Jim coming on at the end here, and Dylan, man. So, and thanks for getting the intern, to help out with that thumbnail. But go around the room really quick, as we always do, and shill ourselves. Buck, where can we find you on the Twitters or Telegram rooms? Will there ever be a PH ecosystem dedicated YouTube channel, or is that in the works? Or
I'm definitely never going to do that.
Okay, so you'll just come on this show. That's cool. Yeah,
I'd much rather let you guys do all the hard work. And but yeah, Dylan can do it.
Unpaid. We just don't.
Yes.
We just volunteerism for everything in the ecosystem. I love it.
You've got enlightened self-interest, I think, based on your position, as we all do. Potentially, we don't know. But I think you can find. Please don't find me. Find Dylan instead. Dylan.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, if you have questions, ask me on Telegram or Twitter. On Twitter, you can find me at @BB_trippin.
What's that stand for?
It stands for bitches be tripping. I made it.
I always like to hear you explain it before we.
Yeah. Buck says he doesn't like them to reach out to him, but he really likes stupid questions. And his
I was about to say he loves them.
I was writing his name for everybody to use. So
yeah.
But yeah, no, you can find us in Telegram. You know where our chats are, et cetera, et cetera. So, but yeah, thanks for having us and everything. We appreciate it, Cabana.
Absolutely, man. Funding Jim, over to you.
I've been trying to do a lot more Twitter spaces that are not crypto. I think or actually maybe the perimeters outside of RH stuff. So I encourage people to go on David Gockstein, Chris Bleck, some of these others that we've had, George Gammon, when they've had spaces, representatives, especially forward-facing people like Walrus, Jesse, Ask Jesse. Other people have joined as well, and I think it's better for our reputation in general. It's also good for marketing and getting basically in front of their audiences through eloquent, diplomatic, truthful conversation as best we can determine. So that's worked out really well. And I'm starting to record those also. So once the Twitter space occurs, I do the same thing that I do for Pulse Chain Media, which is I'm tapping through their profiles and trying to highlight them on the channel as far as who participates or who's speaking. Even if they're not fans of RH or our community, that's fine, because it's about 10xing the community scale is what I care about. Network effect, right? So I'm trying to do that a lot more. So really just hit me up inside of Twitter if you think that there's someone that I should engage that is not part of cryptocurrency or not part of Hex ecosystem. That's great. That's even better. So I want to be in those spaces more in the coming months. But Twitter, just find me on Twitter, Funding Jim, spell it correctly, and that's good enough.
Chris Dunn always comes to mind, DUNN, but Richard has tried to engage him over the past couple of years. He's a smart dude. I mean, he makes great investment posts, threads, but yeah, he's just never seen the light of Hex, and I think he just refuses. But yeah, that'd be a good get, at least for a discussion, in my opinion. So, Hex 19, thank you, sir. Long time viewer of this channel / show, and whether you want pharmaceutical advice from Buck or not, you got some free stuff today. So there you go. Talking about pills jokes earlier, but anyway, joking. Hex 19, love you, man. Good to see you, as always. All right, so that'll do it for us this week. I think we're on Friday of next week. I am traveling, so I'll have to check the schedule, but as always, it'll be on Twitter to when we'll actually have the show. I'll try to announce it in advance, as always. So thanks again to our panel, Buck, Dylan, Gary, and of course guest Dave Levine, and we will see you next week. Cheers, everybody.